I'd always dreamt of traveling to Tibet. I remember being in elementary school when I first saw the Potala, the historical home of the Dalai Lamas. It struck a chord inside. The desire to travel to Tibet became stronger as I learned more about the Tibetans and their incredible passion to achieve a spiritual awareness called enlightenment. My teacher, Glenn Mullin, has been leading pilgrimages to the power places of central Tibet for almost a decade and a half. It was Glenn who invited me to join him in a spiritual pilgrimage to the magical Oracle Lake with his students and friends. I am Steve Dancz. I teach music at the University of Georgia and have composed sound scores for National Geographic television specials. Accompanying us is Khenpo Tashi, a monk from Bhutan, a scholar, and an internationally known Buddhist teacher. Please join me in our pilgrimage to the sacred sites of the Dalai Lamas. First stop, Kathmandu. Here we will rest for a few days to acclimatize to the high altitude before flying to Tibet.
Very cheap price. Looking.
I'm looking for the perfect singing bowl with just the right sound. They are used for meditation, and in my case, part of the sound score for this documentary. Of course, everyone else wants a singing bowl too. We couldn't be in Kathmandu and miss Bodhnath, the well-known Buddhist stupa. The stupa was probably first used as graves for ancient relics in the human remains of kings, much like the Egyptian pyramids. But over time their purpose has changed. Now they are thought to focus energy from nature, filling the pilgrim with positive energy. After walking the Kora, the customary 3 laps around the stupa, I did feel a little lighter. As my eyes get accustomed to the dark, the mystery of the stupa begins to embrace me. On the altar, a picture of the 14th Dalai Lama, currently living in exile. But his photo is forbidden in Tibet by the Chinese authorities. The Dalai Lama calls himself a simple monk, but is considered by Tibetans to be a living Buddha. The goal of Tibetan Buddhist practice is the arousal of the mind of enlightenment and the transcendence of suffering. Tibetan tankas depict the lives of the saints and enlightened masters. Today there is a revival of Buddhist arts in Nepal and Tibet.
Yes, right. Oh yeah, it's just burnishing it and the color comes through.
Yeah, right.
The images of the Buddha are everywhere. Sculptures, paintings. It doesn't matter whether they are a good painting or not, or whether they are created by great masters or less talented painters. They are not symbolic. Looking at them, Tibetans believe, one is gazing at the actual Buddha. The bus takes us the 2.5 hours from the airport to Lhasa. Little did we know this would be the last comfortable ride we'd have. The landscape is extraordinary, but my serenity turns to doubt when I see the devastation of bombed-out monasteries that only a few decades ago were home to practicing monks. The bus stops for us to stretch our legs. I'm able to calm my mind and simply drink in the experience. I am in Tibet. Our first day in Tibet, what a feeling. I can't wait to see the Potala. As we stand at the bottom of the Potala, I think about the people, now and in ancient times, that had to carry the food, water, or furniture up. It's a real climb.
About 4 rooms for the main staff and then a little bit of sleeping quarters off to the side. Under that, he had the Namgyal Trasen. He brought his monastery from Khenpo Tashi, the Namgyal Trasen, and then other places underneath for tombs of early Dalai Lamas, chapels, meeting rooms, and places for
I'm disappointed to see the rooms of the Potala are closed off to visitors. We see a few monks, but they are not performing rituals. They are busy just keeping this massive place clean. Still, we are fortunate as the monks allow us to meditate in a chapel containing the remains of the 7th Dalai Lama. From the roof we see modern Lhasa and the new Lhasa Square. We stay at a Tibetan hotel only a short walk from the Barkor market and Tibet's most sacred temple.
Oh. Yeah, so that's like a 25 million year old sea fossil from the time Tibet was at the bottom of the ocean. Oh, sorry. Onda.
Like the other pilgrims, we walk 3 times around the Barkor and then stop to make smoke offerings by burning juniper.
We're going to offer some smoke, guys. You know, for the Tibetans every morning, they want to make their smoke offerings because it's they offer to all of the spirits of the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space. And they think if you begin every day like that, it's sort of environmental harmony and just a very positive way in your relationship with the earth.
Many of the pilgrims have come here from all over Tibet. Like me, they've always dreamt of coming here. Some of these pilgrims have been walking for weeks, months, and even years. Hour after hour, these Tibetan nuns chant to raise alms for their monastery. Inside the outer halls of the Jokong are hundreds of wheels, each one inscribed with prayers, so that when they are turned, good intentions are spun out into the world. We are extremely fortunate to have Khenpo Tashi join us on the pilgrimage. By his example, we see how Buddhist monks conduct their spiritual practices.
So when I visit holy places, whenever I go, so I try to collect all this small rock, piece of rock or soil or whatever, because that particular places was blessed by many enlightened Rinpoches, Lamas, and many thousands of any pilgrims. So they all came to that particular place with good motivations, intentions.
In the mid-7th century, King Songtsen Gampo made Buddhism the national religion. The king built Tibet's first Buddhist temples, including the most sacred, the Jokong. The king had two wives, a Nepalese princess and a Chinese princess. Both brought numerous Buddhist images with them. To house them, the king had a temple built for each. He constructed the Jokong for the Nepalese princess. Here is the inner sanctum. Sometimes people line up for days to cram inside for a few seconds, just to touch their foreheads to the sacred Shakyamuni Buddha statue. As the Buddha himself taught, "Don't look to me," he said, "but to the enlightened state." Become a Buddha, an awakened being. Buddhists believe that a holy being leaves a subtle trace of his or her energies in the power places. The more time I spend here, the more I can feel a holiness permeating my body. Butter lamps are everywhere.
Butter lamps. Actually, butter lamps represent as a wisdom, light of wisdom. So, on the journey to enlightenment, we need some kind of wisdoms. When you become fully enlightened, you need no more.
Of course, I would see and experience incredible things and have stories to tell. But for me, this really is an opportunity to deeply reflect on the lives and practices of the enlightened beings that have come before, to stand and sit where they did, and to find my path to enlightenment through the examples of the great masters. Glenn told me he is worried because some people spend years to get to the Oracle Lake, or come repeated times and never get to see it because of the weather. Our group made offerings and requested prayers for the success of our visit to the Oracle Lake. These prayers and our good intentions, we hope, will open the lake to us. To be there tonight in the main hall with the monks chanting is just like going home in a real wonderful way. I've been listening to recordings of these monks for years, and to be in the same room with them and hear the sound reverberating over those beautiful halls is just breathtaking. It's what a privilege to be here. Drepung Monastery, the great center of Dharma knowledge, the Oxford University of Tibetan Buddhism. Drepung Monastery was the principal residence in the Lhasa area for the second Dalai Lama and for subsequent Dalai Lamas who followed.
Where they come from is from eastern Tibet, very, very far away. And one of my own gurus is from that same area.
We meditate in the teaching room of the second Dalai Lama.
This is the main seat for the, the fifth Dalai Lama.
Started here.
Yeah, started from here.
So this was the living quarters, private living quarters of the second to fifth Dalai Lama. I was teasing the monk over there and said, well, if you sleep here now, it must mean you're a reincarnation of one of those illustrious beings. And he said, I hope so. Kipling Rinpoche is a young man, the Dalai Lama's senior tutor. Kipling Rinpoche, the junior tutor, both as young men. And the Dalai Lama probably at age, 20, 21. At more or less the time he took his Geshe degree. Very rare to see pictures of the three of them in the monasteries these days, but perhaps because he did his Geshe degree here, they have allowed it. I'm looking for a book written by the second Dalai Lama, and they said, well, it should be in the Potala. And I said, it's written by the second Dalai Lama, he built this monastery, so surely it should be here.
Are these the original texts or these copies?
Well, these will be copies. They cut wood blocks, and then they don't print masses of them, sell them. You actually hire the printer to make you however many you want. So. Which one did you do?
This isn't an off-Broadway show. It's a work party repairing the roof. Drepung was established in 1416. 100 years later, the second Dalai Lama was the abbot of Drepung, where he taught the most promising students and scholars who came from hundreds of smaller monasteries throughout Tibet. Monks came from Mongolia, China, Bhutan, Manchuria, northern India, and a dozen other Central Asian kingdoms. For more than 500 years, tens of thousands of monks received rigorous trainings here in the fundamental texts by the early Indian masters of Buddhism. Before the communist cultural revolution of the 1960s and the excesses of the Gang of Four, up to 20% of the population were ordained monks, a huge percentage of the population devoting their lives to the pursuit of enlightenment. This is without precedent in the history of the world. In 1959, Drepung educated more than 13,000 monks. Today there are officially 300 or 400. This may seem modest, but for Tibetans it is a hopeful sign of their spiritual regeneration. Here the monastery has been hired by a wealthy patron to do a complete reading of the Khenpo, the 108 volumes of the Buddhist canon. Each monk chants in their own style. Next, a short walk to Nechang, a small hermitage on the mountain below Drepung.
They're nice things to take back as gifts. Okay.
Thank you.
Western people love a rock.
Tibetan Buddhists believe that saying the prayer Om Mani Padme Hum invokes the powerful blessings of the Buddha of compassion. Reading it has the same effect. This is the seat of the state oracle of Tibet, the famous Nechang oracle. Traditionally, the Nechang oracle is invoked for advice on all matters of national importance. He is also called upon to assist in finding reincarnations of high lamas, as well as the appointments of abbots and other religious figures. They allow us to sit in meditation in special chambers used by the previous Dalai Lama and Panchen Lamas.
His Holiness would come to this monastery. He would stay in this room. He'd sit on this seat. I tried to make Khenpo Tashi sit there without knowing, because then maybe in future life, you see, he can also be Shenrezi. But then down below...
The day we arrive at Nechang, the monks are busy preparing for a 7-day Bomsok ritual. A monk discovers an insect and saves it from death in the juniper fire. He takes it to the shade.
So just pace yourself. You take about 100 steps, pause for 2-3 minutes, and build your oxygen back up.
Drakyurpa Valley is one of the most popular pilgrimage and practice sites for Tibetan Buddhists of all lineages. The air is thin, and we are still not accustomed to these heights. It takes us about 3 hours to climb to the caves at the top. It is one of the first of many physical tests.
The residing place of Peldenatisha, right beside it, is Lama Drumdumpa's cave, who is the founder of the Kadampa school. That's his cave, and we'll do a meditation in one of those two. The whole complex here, as you can see, has dozens and dozens of caves. In fact, over 500 Kadampa masters after Atisha, but 300 years after, there were always 500 or 600 Kadampa meditators doing 3- and 6-year retreats, 10-year retreats. So it's been the most famous meditation area in central Tibet for the last 1,500 years or so. A minimum of 500 caves just in the immediate area became filled overnight with great masters, and Atisha filled the valley of Yerpa with enlightened masters. Over here, the cave at the small cave at the end is out of Joji Peldenatisha, the 11th century Bengali monk who came and inspired the entire new movement of Tibetan Buddhism.
Khenpo was very moved during our visit. After meditating in Atisha's cave, tears began to run down his cheeks.
Well, that's where he meditated. Probably this, was his probably bed was set up here, in all probability. And his two Buddhist wives did retreat with him wherever he meditated. So probably their beds were over there, something like that. It must have been an area for eating.
Hours are spent walking the hills, exploring caves and visiting chapels commemorating the places where the early great masters achieved enlightenment. In Guru Rinpoche's cave is his footprint. Often the great masters create images in solid rock as a blessing for future generations, pressing hands or feet into the solid rock like a hot knife into butter. Here, many of the early Tibetan masters perfected their meditative and contemplative techniques and transmitted them to lineages of other masters down to the present day. The realization that Khenpo's life has brought him to this very spot must be very powerful for him.
We go this way, to get down there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Paths go down to the
You know they've got a path.
I think it's the other way.
I think it's all right this way.
Sometimes, like on this crossing to Samye, I just relax and let the riverboat take me deeper into Tibet. Samye is Tibet's first monastery. It was built in 787 AD by an early Tibetan king whose teacher was the Indian master Padmasambhava. When we arrive, a ritual is taking place inside. Vibrations from the horns and drums shake our bodies. Once, a great debate took place between Chinese and Indian monks, deciding that Indian Buddhism would become the main branch of Buddhism to be taught in Tibet. Yarlung Castle is the oldest building in Tibet. It stood for almost 2,000 years until it was damaged during the Cultural Revolution and then restored during the liberalization of the 1980s. Naitri Sempo, the first Tibetan king of the Yarlung dynasty, built the castle around 400 BC. Sangsen Gampo, the 33rd king, transformed this castle into a temple in 630 and built the Potala in Lhasa. According to legend, he was a prince who fled India. His father abandoned him because he was ugly as sin. He came to Tibet with a small army and settled, laying the foundations for the kingdom, which would eventually emerge 1,000 years later, covering an empire nearly the size of the Roman Empire at its zenith.
The young Bulakang began as main residence of the first 33 kings of Tibet, but the 33rd, Sangsen Gampo, embraced Buddhism and made it the national spiritual tradition of the country, and after that moved to Lhasa, transformed that very wonderful mountain into a chapel and a little temple, and it remained as such ever since, eventually becoming a monastery with a number of resident monks. Valley. This Truntuk temple was of prime importance, and because this had been the seat of the Tabu kings and the Tabu dynasty for something like 1,000 years perhaps, or 800 years, depending on the dating system, it became very, very important. And from that time until today has been considered one of the 12 most important temples in all of Central Asia. As you notice, even today people continue visiting it regularly for pilgrimage and for prayer and meditation, to collect merit.
Nearby, we stop in a local wine shop for a glass of barley wine called Chang and are welcomed with a wine offering song. Everyone is getting very excited about the Oracle Lake, which is only a week away. But Glenn is concerned that the weather will make the mountains to the lake impassable. So he and Khenpo chant prayers to find favor with the deities so that the lake will open to us.
So we just do one more walk around. Khenpo La is going to do some wrathful purple mantras to demand that Palden Lama opens the lake. I myself, I'll do some Yamantaka wrathful ones. Palden Lama always listens to those two idioms very closely.
Lama josa yidan la gbeja je kanyan do la meja dorji shono gombarji hungani dorji che na balo cho meza ba dar gile gile dala beni ba meda meza gile gile dala beni ba meda meza gile gile dala beni ba meda.
I get the impression that these monks don't get many visitors. This is the hermitage where Tsongkhapa, the guru of the first Dalai Lama, lived in a cave for 5 years of meditation. His 8 chief disciples lived in the surrounding caves. The abbot of the monastery generously pours yak butter tea, an extremely high cholesterol concoction. Lama Gillick takes us to the mountaintop to show us where Lama Tsongkhapa meditated. And finally, we meditate in the cave where he achieved spiritual realization.
Of all the places on the earth, there's a few hundred where great masters have achieved enlightenment and whose teachings have had profound effects that have lasted many generations. So Lama Tsongkhapa, who's from Amdo, from eastern Tibet, traveled to central Tibet and studied in over 45 different monasteries.
In a famous nunnery, we visit the cave where 6 of Lama Tsongkhapa's female disciples achieved realization.
This became of the inner city the main practice place for women, and has remained as such until today. It was closed, of course, during the Cultural Revolution, but was open in the 80s, and caves were the practice places of preference for all Tibetans. Usually they're dry, the rain doesn't disturb them, and they've got a very appealing rental scale system. Tibet in general is filled with thousands of meditation caves. This cave site in particular were the two sacred caves. You went in the caves along the side and you saw the recession in the earth behind the glass. That's where they actually sat and meditated, in that recession place. Lhasa became the capital of Tibet, although it was never highly populated, 2,000 to 3,000 people, 5,000 people. It continued to be used as a place of meditation from that time on. It became very special in the time of Lama because he had 6 female students, all of whom achieved very deep realization and became highly accomplished Buddhist masters. And they achieved their realization meditating in these caves. It was, of course, destroyed during the Cultural Revolution, and the 60s and 70s was closed down and also physically destroyed, but was rebuilt during the 1980s. And now I think there's somewhere over 100 Buddhist nuns living in it. Every Tibetan monastery and every high Tibetan Lama makes certain kinds of protection amulets. And this Anigampa is very famous for doing that themselves, and essentially put the prayer folded up with the protective mantras on the inside, folded very tightly, and then they wrap it in this decorative design. Most Tibetans would then sew a red cloth around it and wear it around their necks, or put them in their homes in places that they felt they needed good energy, and like in your baby's room or places like that. And of course, they'd have many of them in their own temple room, their meditation rooms.
Trandruk Monastery is one of the earliest Buddhist monasteries in Tibet. It goes back to Songtsen Gampo. The monastery is famous for its pearl tanka, an image of the Buddha made up of 30,000 pearls. Songtsen Gampo was far more than an early king of Tibet. The Tibetans believe he is the embodiment of an early incarnation of the Dalai Lamas.
I've been coming to this site for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've really been delighted to see it slowly grow from nothing. The idea with the Tibetans is the Khenjur, the translated words of the Buddha, the roughly 1,000 sutras and tantras from Buddha, carry a special blessing and a special power. So here they're carving them all into flat slates, and they have the slates inside and slowly build the stupa. And in this way, every year when I come, there's another 3 or 4 feet of stupa up, another 2 or 3 texts out of the 108 volumes of the Khenjur. There's also a work of art in that on the outside they decorate it with wonderful Buddhas, bodhisattvas, tantric images, and all of those images that are sacred to the Tibetans. For them, I think this is a symbol of the power of spirit under difficult circumstances, and the power to regenerate and to come back, if you will, to quintessential roots in a difficult time.
This modern stupa is called the Kangyur stupa because when finished, it will contain the 108 volumes of the Buddha's words. Khenpo and I climb to the top of the stupa and say the traditional prayers.
냠남 급이 제남 달라도 주제 변전 계전 따버서 개 세정로도 언어 선언은 개발론도 줄을 봐와 다잘 항어제주 나저들의 장라보 제외진의 저버 끼끼 소설 하젤로 이렇게 세 하젤로 끼끼 소설 하젤로 트리탄 끼끼 소설 하젤로 끼끼 소설 하젤로 Right here.
Okay. This is ours together, so. Then we tie our flags with thousands of others, which carry blessings to the 4 corners of the universe. Hajelu.
Hajelu means victory is the goal.
Ah, yes.
So, suppress the evil spirit. This is how.
It is time to leave the Lhasa area and travel to the west.
So all the Tibetan go only. I give you this. 20. 20 no alo. The last plus 40 to 40, 20. Oh no.
This shopping experience brings new meaning to the word strong arm, because these ladies don't let go of your arm until you buy something.
Hey, do you have $1 you can lend him?
Use how much?
George,
Use how much?
give him $1.
This year. 저렇게 여기 하자.
2 years later, then they founded this tomb.
Tashi Lumpo was the first Dalai Lama's monastery in Shigatse, and is also the monastery of the Panchen Lama. Tashi Lumpo is very holy because it houses several statues created by the hand of the first Dalai Lama. Our timing couldn't have been better. Yongsen Rinpoche, one of the greatest living lamas, now in his late 80s, had come from 1,500 miles away and was giving a series of teachings and initiations. We were blessed to sit in for the last hour and receive the healing empowerment of the Buddha of limitless life.
It's a tantric initiation, and those kind of events are often open to the public. Some will be very sacred, but if it's a general practice, then it'll be open to the public. And as you can see, when the temples are filled or the gathering hall is filled, they spill out onto the steps or outside the windows or anywhere where they can hear what's going on and participate. In terms of offering substances that are handed out, usually those will actually be carried out and distributed. As you know, sometimes in India with large famous lamas, these kinds of initiations, you'll have as many as 200,000 or 300,000 people participating. But it's very auspicious that we're here on this day, certainly.
It takes a day's journey to reach our campsite, a cow pasture near a small village. Glenn teases us again with yet another story about the miracles to be found at the Oracle Lake.
And together with, I think it was 14 of his tantric assistants, they did a big ritual down by the lake and a dance, and then they threw the sword into the center of the lake. And it went down to the bottom, and when it hit the lake, he said it was like, it turned into a lake of bubbling, boiling milk. And within that bubbling, boiling milk, you could just see vision after image after image after image. And 200 or 300 people were in attendance during that ritual. And he said everyone who saw it, everyone who was there, saw those images very, very clearly. And from that time on, anyone who went to the lake with pure mind and strong intent has received visions.
Being at this high altitude is having its effect. I can't do math. I can't even speak. Now this feels like an exhibition. It's the altitude. Expedition.
Altitude makes it.
Yep. Expedition. We are looking for Champazizi, a small but historically important monastery rebuilt in the 9th century after the Tibetan civil wars. I wander off by myself.
Should I do it?
No problem,
Sometimes you can see very clearly. Well, because you see, they paint this paper in a special ink with some arsenic in it.
Okay. And the arsenic prevents any bacterial damage or mold and also bugs and so on. And it just keeps it 100% perfect. And of course, gold never degenerates.
We are served tea by the monks and presented with katas, as is the Tibetan custom signifying an auspicious beginning and the good intentions of the person providing it. Katas can be offered to statues of the Buddha, to lamas, monks, and even a musician from Atlanta, Georgia.
I think everyone else just step up and step out a little bit.
Sakya Monastery was established in 1073. Sakya refers to the gray earth mountains that surround us in southwest Tibet. Legend has it that when Atisha was traveling from India to Nagari, he passed through the area. Upon seeing the mountain, he entered into a trance and predicted that the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara would perform great enlightenment deeds there.
The strong red element in the monastic painting is very much a Sakya characteristic of Sakya monasteries. Oh. And whenever you drive around the country, occasionally in the mountains you'll see like a cluster of buildings with some red and a lot of white. I mean, there's a Kargyu Galupa Nyingma monastery. But when you see predominance of red like this, it's generally Sakya.
In Sakya, we have the good fortune to be there when the Rinpoche is giving blessings from the famous conch shell that had been used during the lifetime of Buddha himself. As we climb higher and higher, I wonder how a lake is even possible on the top of a mountain. After days of driving on washed out and bumpy roads, I'm happy to take a short walk. The Nepalese Sherpas put up the tents and prepare the meals. Tibetan drivers move the gear from one campsite to the next. Without their help, well, we'd be fried. Back to the road and the 200 encore of the driver's favorite tune. Hours ago, we lost track of the trucks with our food and tents, so we wait. But they don't show up. We are, according to my calculations, about 3 hours into our 10-hour drive. And the next official stop will be a noodle shop.
So one like that, one extra one like that with vegetables and noodles, and then two with vegetables and...
We get to Chukurgyal, and our truck could be hours behind, and our cooks and our food and so on and so forth.
I'm not going to let anything stop me from beating Glenn out of 100 Chinese yuan. It's just about $1.25.
Kind of luck.
Okay. What can we do here? Can't get at him.
We got some bad enough bucks. Today's lesson: don't mess with the master.
Ho, ho, ho.
A welcome break at the mountain peak as we near Oracle Lake. The weather doesn't look promising. More offerings and prayers.
What are you eating? What are you hiding?
Thank you. I'm eating salt bar.
Soul bar.
Yes, no sugar this one. It's a wonder. It's
Amazing.
Just only like this shot. Just only like this shot.
What's the solution?
So, Michael, you're a man of astute intelligence.
You're fishing, Glenn.
Quick wit.
It's not going to happen.
Where is this lady?
How many ladies do we have on this group?
I don't know, 5, 6.
Okay, down there, the rooms don't, and they're not that much to look at, but they're clean, no bugs. They've got mattresses. There's 5 beds in one, 5 in another. Nice little tables. The electricity's off now, comes on later. I thought if we put all the ladies in one room.
No food, no sleep. A filthy room, and the night's entertainment? 6 snoring men and a chanting monk. Did I mention the meteor-sized hole in the roof? And yes, it rained. Hard. Famished, I'm first in line and ready for a huge breakfast. This is breakfast. There's no breakfast yet. This is girl sitting and warming your toes. There's a nice big wood fire over there that if the door were shut, this place would be toasty. Otherwise, it's just a little warmer than outside, but that's nice. How about this western town? And what is this noisy thing that we see everywhere? It's the Swiss Army knife of Tibetan farm implements and can do just about everything. Today's the day, Oracle Lake. Right now I'm really excited. We've made it. Weeks of traveling, nearly 1,000 kilometers to Oracle Lake. The weather looks iffy. Will we even get to see the lake? And if so, will I have a vision?
The Red Mountain. We haven't seen any Red Mountains, have we?
I try to clear my mind and chant a few last prayers. But it's hard. The air is unbelievably thin. But we're not there yet. Still another mountain to climb. After 3 hours, we reach the top.
Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum.
Here, at last, is Lama Lhasa, the Oracle Lake. It was a visionary site for the second Dalai Lama. This lake is one of the great wonders of the world. Every Dalai Lama, from the 2nd through the 13th, has come here and had visions. The mix of mountains, clouds, sun, and shadow offers a journey into other dimensions. Then suddenly it storms, hail and freezing rain. It's mid-July, but it looks more like a white Christmas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey.
Good morning.
Hey. Everybody okay?
Yeah, everybody's fine.
Excellent.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Look bright and sunny.
The snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually got a little bit of snow, huh?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
All the way around.
Everywhere.
Very nice.
Michael. There comes Michael.
Breakfast camp.
Look at this.
Breakfast camp.
But everyone is not fine. Many in the group are suffering from altitude sickness and either stay in their tents or visit the pressurized bag.
My poor jacket has been through a lot.
Pumping pattern.
Okay.
Slow 5 pumps, and then that will make your perhaps ears feel better.
Your ears might feel better.
I feel fine, so I explore the ruins of the second Dalai Lama's monastery that lie all around us.
Look how big this place was.
Chakyor Gyal Monastery was, until a few decades ago, the second Dalai Lama's greatest creation. It was utterly destroyed and its vast collection of priceless artworks lost. A 500-year institution reduced to rubble. While the Oracle Lake is for some the high point of our adventure, The whole trip has been a transforming experience.
But I think it's an offering, so I'm going to leave it right here.
My senses have opened up. Time has slowed down.
Those beautiful little flowers. And
I marvel at the miracle of the microscopic plant life around me.
Universe all unto itself. These guys look very happy here.
Glenn says that most of the participants in our group received visions, and those that didn't have had vivid dreams. During my vision at Oracle Lake, I hear an inner voice that spoke with eloquence about integrating spiritual practice with daily life. And as the wind blows across the lake, it created a shape like an hourglass, but with the sand going up rather than down, a reminder for me of the fallacy of time. Headed home, we stop at Milarepa's cave to give thanks for our good fortune. Milarepa is the great mystic, poet, and yogi. He is the most beloved of the Tibetan saints who achieved enlightenment. According to a blessing Milarepa uttered towards the end of his life, anyone who even hears his name, even once, receives an instant blessing and will not be reborn in a lower state during the next 7 lifetimes. Milarepa is loved by the Tibetans for the many songs he composed, which are still sung today.
And the story is, I think, that he was passing through this region, and the valley down below had had a lot of problems with their harvests and their life in general. They'd gone through a lot of years of hardship. Milarepa stopped and meditated here for a while, and everything started going very wonderfully for them. And so the village immediately kind of adopted him, and he stayed here for some time thereafter. And there's a section of his 100,000 songs, his Mila Gurbum, which some of those songs were composed right here. And in fact, Khenpo knows a couple of them by heart because he had put on a Milarepa presentation back in Bhutan some time ago.
But my voice is not so good now because dusty, so this running. So it's a very good tender. If you do like this, it's very good. Everybody, when you sing, you can do like this here. Sonda marambai
As our pilgrimage came to an end, Glenn told me that what we had experienced here would be processed internally on many levels over time. He said we will likely remember moments on our deathbed, and I know he's right. I count myself so fortunate to make this pilgrimage to the power places of Tibet. I'm grateful to Glenn, Khenpo, and the wonderful Tibetan people that I've met.
Good morning, happy monk. Oh, isn't this wonderful? Wonderful. Why are you sitting in the car?
It's in the a little bit raining, so I don't want to get a flu. Bhutan, this is now you are in Bhutan.
This looks like Bhutan?
100% sure, exactly. It's very interesting. Waterfalls, trees, because we are traveling yesterday, desert, dry. Today we are freshening up.
I'll always remember this as one of the high points of my life, my pilgrimage to the sacred sites of the Dalai Lamas.